Hello everyone, welcome back to the Addicted Bookworm. And yeah, so I'm redoing this video because I did this video at like nearly 3 in the morning and I was absolutely exhausted and I looked it and I still feel exhausted, but hopefully I can pretend that I'm not exhausted. I'm currently allowing my cell phone to charge up because I gotta go over to the bank and get some money so I can do my laundry today. Also, my books didn't come in because apparently the signal got lost and I didn't realize how close he was or she was to my apartment. So, yeah, no books today. But ebooks definitely came in on time. In this video, I'm going to talk about some of the things that I have gone through as someone who is definitely anti romantasy, and when you read so many of them and they just totally make you want to vomit because they're so badly written, you're literally like, yeah, oh man. So as someone with her frontal lobe fully developed, I can think critically about romantasy, and I will be doing that. I will, I have a fantasy channel which is up to like 4 subscribers now, which might seem small compared to how many I've got on this channel, but I like the idea of just doing, reviews of books and every now and then making some kind of comment or video about something that burns me up to no end. So in this one, I'm going to talk about as I said, the big problem when you are a woman who cannot stand romantasy, even though you've got at least about 6 of them, 6, maybe 8 of them or 7 of them left. Because that's what I do. I complain about things. complain about things. I'm a very opinionated Generation Xer. I don't like bullshit and I don't like cash grabs, and I think that romantasy is just one giant cash grab. But before I begin, I want a disclaimer. If you guys get comfort from romantasy and you love it, go ahead and read it. Supposedly this is a free country. So when you have a job and you get money from your job, you're like, oh, after I pay my bills, I'm going to treat myself out to something that's for me. And books are my treat. I work at a place that serves food. And I will tell you, I like it better than my other food job because at least there's variety. I like variety. I don't like this. When you're eating the same old over and over and over again, I don't care if the stuff is free, okay? I don't care. It gets very boring. That's why like 9 out of 10 times I'd be bringing my own lunch because it was just so boring and so repetitive and no. So, so yesterday I got paid probably about 8:30 last night, which I have learned in this job that don't expect your money to be downloaded at the same time each week. Don't. Because you're going to be severely disappointed. So, I get my money and I immediately, pay my gas, electric bill, because you got to have lights on I have to have lights on in order to stay here. That's part of the lease. Part of the requirement to live here is if you can't afford the rent, you can afford your utility bill, which is not usually right, but but I can afford my gas electric bill. So anyways, I go onto Amazon, order the books that did not show up, although my The Hunger of the Gods is supposed to be coming in tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to that because that copy is going back to the library at some point. I can actually make it to the library. So I go and I get those, and then I go to Barnes and Noble because I go on their thing because I basically want to get Joe Abercrombie's First Law trilogy. Now, I did read the first book, I did borrow the second book, and I have yet to start the third book. However, I did not like the first book. I read it, I did not like it. So when I saw that Spotify had the book, I was like, okay, great. I'm going to listen to it on my phone, and I'm going to figure out what was it about the book I just didn't like. Because even though I did a review on this channel of why I did not like, I just found that my review was not as thorough as I wanted it to be. And with as many subscribers as I have, I think that people deserve to have a much more thorough review of a book. So I have it on audiobook. I will tell you something. The High Inquisitor in the first book is fucking insane. I have gotten to the point in the book where he's arrested the head of the Royal Mint. I call him that. That's not his exact title, but he's in charge of the Royal Mint. And he's taken this guy, this very well-dressed guy who has all these connections, and he has literally started cutting off this man's finger. I literally would not have picked that up from just reading that book. I would not have. But listen to it, I retain that information, I can remember it. So these were cheap. They were like $5 a piece. So I got all three of them, and then this is when I started running into problems. When you know exactly which author you want to buy a book from or get a book from, however you do it, you have no problem finding that author, especially the author is a New York Times best-selling author. No problem at all. No problem at all. It's when you're trying to find authors that you did not know existed that you run into problems. So, on Barnes & Noble, they have, you go and click fantasy, sci-fi and fantasy, and you have these little sub-pages of fantasy and sci-fi, and one of them is epic fantasy. They have romantasy, they've got military fantasy. I saw that and I'm like, why is Fourth Wing on military fantasy? And then I thought about it. Oh, never mind. I just answered my own question. So I scrolled up to epic fantasy because I'm like, oh great, I'm going to click this. I got dang hair. Sorry, that was just off the wall. So, okay, great. I'm going to click epic fantasy. I'm going to get all this epic fantasy, and no, you don't get what you want on those search engines. The algorithm refuses to let you just have epic fantasy. They put romantasy in there with epic fantasy. I'm like, no. For someone who has read plenty of romantasy and has read several volumes of epic fantasy, there is a difference between the two. There is a difference. And I think it's because nobody at Barnes & Noble actually reads these books. No, they don't. So I go and I notice Fourth Wing, Onyx Storm, all that stuff. And I'm like, this is not epic fantasy. Okay, if epic means there's a lot of pages, you have a very weird view of epic. Epic fantasy has its own tone, its own feel, its own scenes, its own characters. It's not about fucking. It's not. It's about battling the dark forces, battling whatever. So I'm just scrolling. I'm like, oh my Lord, why am I still seeing more dumb romantasy? I think that if you're new to the genre of fantasy, and especially with states nationwide banning cell phones school in schools, you have more students who are going to the library because they've got to have something to keep themselves occupied. And it's going to breed fertile ground for a whole new generation of readers. Which is not bad if there was a huge measure of quality in the literary world, but there isn't. There's a huge chunk of gulk. And weirdly enough, those girls who are being forced to not be on their phone, they're going to find this garbage called romantasy, and they're going to not be okay at all. No. Anyways, so I finally got to books that looked like they were not romantasy, and I clicked these authors, especially if they were male authors. I clicked these male authors' names, and they had like freaking like awards. So I was looking through it, and I found this one book called The White Tower. I don't remember the name of the author because my phone is currently charged, but The White Tower is the first book in this 5-book series. As of now, Barnes & Noble put in there if the series is finished. Like he does have another series that is finished, and I really do want to check that out. I'm thinking I'm going to check the price of the book. But if it's like $2.99, $3.99, I'll go ahead and buy it. Or never mind, I'm not going to repeat. I'm not going to correct myself. I'm going to go ahead and buy it, and I'm going to read it. So The White Tower is essentially, it is a high fantasy, it's an epic fantasy. This is exactly what I wanted when I started looking for my next read, because I was going to get the second book in the Hollow series by Kim Harrison, but I'm not even at 50% of that book finished, so I said, no, I'm not going to do it. When I get to 50%, then I will get the second book, which will probably be next week. I will do that. So if I get to 50% when I get paid next week, I will go ahead and get it. But until I get to that 50% mark, I'm not going to do it. So, so I mean, it's like, so yeah, I mean, that's, that's what I'm going to do. I'm sorry, guys. It's like 11:26 in the morning, and I'm still getting my bearings. So, anyways, so I saw this, and I'm like, cool. So this is about a world in which people that practice magic get imprisoned in this white tower, and it follows 3 characters. Once again, cannot pronounce their names. Then after I got that book, I went back to the search results, and I'm just going romantasy. I mean, you can tell romantasy because they're cutesy and they're pretty, and they have sprayed edges. That's how you can tell it's a romantasy. Now, I will say that sprayed edges are getting into high fantasy, which I do not like, because I am sorry, but I don't like all that pink. No, I don't. Give me some death and blood. I'll be happy. And then I'm scrolling down, still romantasy. I found a couple. I put them in my save for later because I do intend to get them as ebooks. And then I see a book called The Book That Would Burn. Once again, don't remember the author's name because I had my phone recharging. And it's basically about this boy who has grown up in this world surrounded by books, and a girl that gets hired to be trained as a librarian, and things are going to be happening in that book. And then I got another book. I don't remember the title or the author's name, but that book series has been featured very heavily on Book Talk and BookTube. And I was like, okay, it was like $12.99. I went ahead and spent the money and got it. So my Joe Abercrombie books and my 3 ebooks were the only books that I got on Barnes & Noble. Now, as I said, there were a couple books that I put saved for later. So I put in my cart, and then I went to the cart and I dropped it down to my save for later. So the thing about it is that when you're trying to find epic fantasy and you're surrounded by romantasy, if you are not prevalent in the genre, if you are new, as I said, because of those kids are going to find these books to fantasy, you're not going to know the difference between romantasy and epic fantasy or high fantasy. And literally, you're going to be introduced to smut and to corn and all that type of stuff. As somebody whose frontal lobe has fully developed, I am very, very picky about the books that I get because, I paid my gas electric bill and I gave my brother money so that he would have a way to get to and from work, because payday's coming in a couple of days for him, and then the next day it will be for me. And it's like I just shake my head. I really do. I really do. So so yeah, I mean, on my fantasy channel, when I do a review of romantasy, I roast it. I was like, I didn't like this character, I didn't like this situation, I did not like this scene. There's actually a book, it's the second book that I chose. I have been reading that book. I started that book yesterday, and I read it all the way till like 1 in the morning. And there is a scene in the book I did not like, and you will find out that scene when I finish the book and do the review. Oh, sorry, I need to get a little bit more sleep. But yeah, so when you go on places like Barnes & Noble or on Amazon and you type in fantasy, you're telling the algorithm to give you all the fantasy recommendations or whatever you want to call it that they offer. And if you're not well versed in what romantasy looks like, you are going to buy it. And yeah, you're going to be like, oh, this looks really good. And then you're going to read it and you go, oh God, this book is not good at all. That's why I started the channel. I started my fantasy channel was to get people to read the good stuff and to stay away from the bad stuff. Because I feel like that as a woman, it is my job to help keep this stuff from being considered. But I also think that when we're talking about fantasy and women, you're literally going to constantly have people that are going to be like, oh, as a woman, this is the only kind of fantasy that you should be reading. And it's like as bad as like if you're a woman and you want to buy a truck. I should know this because my mother, God rest her soul, constantly talked about this. She's like, every time that I turn around and I want a truck, I am directed towards a car. Like, this is the only thing that a woman is supposed to drive. And I'm like, well, why didn't you just walk off the lot? It's just, why didn't you just walk off the lot? Why did you just go with the suggestion? And this is the thing, is every time I turn around, I have to listen to women gushing about these books, and it gives people the impression that this is the kind of fantasy that women, only women, read. So if you have a woman who likes George R.R. Martin, or likes John Gwynne or Robin Hobb or any of the big name fantasy authors, you're kind of looked at like, are you okay? Do you need some help to find some good romantasy? Like, no, I don't need help to find good romantasy. Can you please leave me the heck alone and let me enjoy what I want to enjoy? And that is the issue that I do see. I do see a lot of that. Or maybe I rephrase that by saying, I feel like that's something that women in general know that is literally the only kind of fantasy books that they are even allowed to read, or they're even believed that is all they're going to read is romantasy. And there's men have done like talks about this. I've even talked about how romantasy is not good for women's brains. And I've had one, I think it was like Second Story, that talked about how this is not good for female brains. This is why you also don't see, men reading it, because it's not like it is for women. But I like my Witcher. I'm looking at the books that I've got. I got my Simon R. Green. I've got my Jim Butcher. I've got my Kevin Herning. I got my Brandon Sanderson. I got my J.R.R. Tolkien. But I do have some romantasy splashed in there as well. Because despite the fact I'm not a fan of romantasy, I feel like that I gotta have a splash of something to kind of remind me of why I can't stand romantasy and why I like male authors. Like, oh yeah, I forgot to add, I got Robert Jordan, which I only have the first 2 books. I will be getting the third book. Most likely, I will just end up getting it on Kindle. I know, but I started the series off on Kindle, and I'm going to probably continue it on Kindle. But the thing about when women go to like the Rip Bodice, they are not going to a store that sells high quality fantasy that makes you wonder if the main character will survive. It's literally, they literally don't sell that. Anyways, so as I continue trying to discover new fantasy books, I'm probably going to continue to encounter the same kind of problem, and it'll probably be something that will probably last me quite some time. Anyways, if you are really looking for epic fantasy, just Google epic fantasy authors, and the AI on Google will tell you the names of some of the men and women who write epic fantasy, and go there and get your books from those authors. That way you cut the time. the time. Before I end it here, I am going to say this coming week I will be getting some more books. Hopefully it will go out well. But next month I'm going to be getting the ebook version of the third Wheel of Time book, because next month I will be reading the second Wheel of Time. And then maybe like next month I will get the physical book of the third book of the Wheel of Time. Alright, so anyways, I am going to end it there, and I will see you guys in the next video. So until then, keep reading those books.